There we go. I don't think I have the audio going, but I do have everything else going. We have had a busy few days. Thankfully, we had Rusty and Deborah over, which was awesome. I've got so many things open here. There we go. That isn't it. I've got audio coming from everything. Oh wait, don't hear myself. That's good. Okay, hooray. Yeah, we had a busy weekend. We were filming first time in several months for both Rusty and Deborah, which was great. Had a really nice time. Tried to knock down my drink. We have only 2 weeks till we leave for BGGCon Spring, which I'm excited to go to. There's going to be quite a few people there. It's a different mix of folks than the Fall Con, generally. And we have it's a pretty awesome event, and it's nice that it's at the hotel. At the airport. The other one is downtown, which is actually pretty great too, but it's a little bit more difficult for people to get around. Now, if you fly into Dallas Love, different airport, not as easy. We fly into Dallas Love, but it's worth it, and it's a real fun convention. And certain tickets are available if you're interested in going. We've got a lot of folks coming for sure. The plan is for Nick and Mike Murphy to come. Nikki and I are going. Rusty's going to be there. I don't think Dave is coming. No, Dave's not coming. And Aaron can't. We hope to see Aaron next weekend. That is the goal. Hey Ian Middleton. We're hoping that we get to see him though, because his father's having some health issues, and so we, obviously whatever happens, and he'll have to help his father out, which is totally fine. I mean, we're kind of worried. But Aaron is excited. Hopefully we'll get to have a opportunity. Well, so the goal is to have Dave come too, but Dave is going to be gone still. So I'm not sure what we're going to do. I can't remember what day it is. I think it's Saturday. That's when we're filming, hopefully. Because Aaron was saying it's hard enough getting up on Monday morning without staying up late on Sunday night with playing games. Let's see here. Wow, I jumped ahead on the music. I wonder how many tracks I go through. So I have a huge playlist of stuff on Epidemic Sound, and this may be one I hear later, but I recognize this song. It is not what I'd hoped. Let's see here. Let's get to the camera. Wait, do I know? I should know this. That isn't it. There we go. Here we go. Hooray. I'm actually, I know I painted the other day, and I guess I painted the leather parts. It doesn't feel like it. I know I did the coat. That is correct. I did actually paint, and then I got distracted because someone was asking about airbrushing, and I'm always willing to tell folks about what you need to do to airbrush. He looks pretty great. Now, this is me trying to paint two at the same time and look roughly similar. They're not really that close. They're close, but it comes down really, I think in this case, to the undercoating. This maybe doesn't quite have as much color but I mean, he's already dark, right? He has a tremendous amount of 5 o'clock shadows, so I may work on some of that. And then I had Blade, which I was hoping to get to. He's going to be kind of similar. I think he's got a lot of black clothes. So we'll see. Again, notice they're not quite the same. I mean, I'm trying, but it's hard to... I'm not that great of an airbrush artist, essentially, for miniatures. And these are big. I mean, I should be able to get... So I imagine trying to use some of the, because I haven't really done much airbrushing on, other than priming, on GW minis, and they're tiny. I just got an email today, they're raising their prices, which is kind of rough. I already feel like we, you know, United States is further away and everything, but you look at the, I think I've talked about this before, I was going to buy some stuff in Europe, and I decided not to, because I didn't want to have to get it home, and now I wish I had, because it was actually considerably cheaper. But I also don't need to buy minis. That's the real part. I just got to tell myself, don't worry about it. I do want to, we still want to do something on the show, and it's probably going to be Nikki and I doing it on date night, because Nick and Mike are moving up north. They're actually, I think, driving up today for some of their studio stuff, I think. But they may have like May and it's part of June, and then they're gone. And you know, they'll keep coming down, but it's not as often, and that's a bummer, because Nick and I were going to do something, but we just, it's so hard. Everybody's having, you know, everybody's just busy. It's crazy how busy everybody is. Let's see, go a little bit closer. Everybody's really busy. I haven't seen Dave for a little over a month. Well, actually more than a month. I think we filmed just before we left. So, you know, for the gathering of friends and the eclipse. So that was the beginning of April. So yeah, it's been a month, a little over a month. And yeah, and Dave is kind of more available. Rusty has been having troubles with work. Deborah was filming, so she's gone a couple months. And Rusty, Aaron's got a very busy job, and then his father's health, and he's helping take care of his father, so helping his mom. So which is great, you know, you don't want to be doing that by yourself. Our friend Gabby from the show, she was helping take care of her grandfather, and because her grandmother was away, needed to go back to the Philippines, I believe, and she mostly did it by herself. Her cousins would help sometimes, but you know, everybody's busy. It's not like Gabby made you know, the sacrifice to go and do that and put her career on hold and stuff like that. So hopefully we could see Gabby again soon. Miss her a lot. She's fun. Anyway, enough of that stuff. Let's get to trying to paint today. I promised myself I would get something done. So although this looks great. I mean, the coat looks better than I thought. You know, you have to let it dry, and I think I did do a little bit more on it. Now, I think this was a different mix than this one. I think this is a little bit better looking. But they're both great. I need to, wow, that looks kind of different. I guess it's just the shape, the way it's highlighted with the lighting. This is the belt buckle. Now, one of the things I want to try to do is I need to go look at the photos. I'm using the, goodness gracious, I'm using the, well, that's not the thing to do. The photos that they put out during the Kickstarter as my reference. And I don't know where the heck they are. Should be in one tab. The problem, oh, there it is. The problem is for me as I have, hey Stacy. Hey Dim, how you doing? Sorry I'm missing out on all that. My brother's taking care of my mom by himself. Oh, that's terrible. Stacy, it's the same stuff. My mom, you know, my brother doesn't live in the city, so my mom's not in bad shape, but she's getting there. You know, and it's unfortunate, but she's doing fine. I mean, she's by herself. That's the real hard part. But she is able to live by herself and doing okay, and she gets around. But we're just noticing, you know, it's kind of heartbreaking. But again, enough of that stuff. Okay, were you trying to different techniques just to experiment? I mean, in general, don't you try this to get the same look across? I generally do. So one of the reasons why Stacy was talking about last week, I did these two minis. And these were done with a different technique. These are done with dry brushing for the undercoating. And I just did this, I mean, I actually love this technique. I did this to show that, now this one's not quite done. I went back in and painted the face again. If you look back on some of the videos, you'll see what she looked like. But I wanted to show folks how to do this without an airbrush. An airbrush is great, but it's another piece of equipment that you got to learn, and it's got some expense involved. And so what I did is I just painted these entirely black and then dry brushed the highlights, trying to emulate somewhat this type of highlighting, right? It's not as good. Now, I love the end result. It's not as bright. That's why the skin was dark. So you can see here, this is kind of dark looking. It was like that with her face, even, but a little bit darker. Like I didn't get, there was too much texture maybe with the primer. And so it had more of a speckled, looked like a pointillist kind of painting. So I do want them to look similar, but there are hundreds of minis. So there is going to be some evolution of my techniques and things like that. And I don't sweat it too much. But yes, I do want them to be roughly similar. That was these two. Then I also tried, I've done several Iron Man minis. This one I tried to do with an airbrush as the undercoating for doing this type of zenithal. And it's okay, it looks great, but it doesn't really have any shading like I had hoped. I actually, there's a little bit, but it might have been just I got carried away with the undercoating, but I still have to paint his eyes. But I mean, I honestly feel kind of, I have one more that's sort of probably more in line with the rest of the minis. So it is probably the one that will go in my set. So I'm painting 2 sets at a minimum. I have only the first box a few times, but I have most everything from the 2 first campaigns. And from one of them's a friend's, and so I'm painting them as well. And so I generally give the nicer one to the people that I'm painting for, because I'm not that worried about it. I might have something that I just loved that I did that was different, and that I might keep for myself, but generally I give the nicer ones. The ones that I think look better. My friend was looking at Professor X, and he was like, this can't be done. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm gonna go back and fix the face. It was just too dark. I think I rushed it. I actually wanted, well, this was a year ago or more. I wanted to paint the X-Men so that we could play them, because I'd like to do it again. What if you do the zenithal highlight with spray paint like the Army Painter? That absolutely works just fine, Stacy. It's the one thing that you got to be really careful with rattle can spray cans to do zenithal. That's how Scott did all of his. Now he didn't paint everything, but he primed a lot of it. I think he primed the entirety of the stretch goals box. Temperature is an issue, and humidity can be an issue, particularly with, now, my friend Sebastian has sprayed stuff in the rain, sprayed stuff in the snow, freezing cold. Were we there for snow? We must have been. I feel like he was outside doing it in the snow, but maybe it was just freezing cold. And I feel that it all turned out great. But what ends up happening is, I can probably prime something one of these days, Stacy, that will, maybe when we return from BG Spring, I'll do one with rattle can to show you. What can happen is it's more pixely. So it looks a little bit more like her face did. Let's go with this one here. Sort of like this, where you can see that there's black underneath. It's more difficult to control the paint, but it isn't really terrible, particularly with something that's slightly larger. And I think it's just as valid of a process. I don't have a black undercoat, but I have the white scar, and I see people complaining about these paints, but the few that I have used have been pretty good. Now, I've never used the white scar, which is very white. I used, I think we talked about before, I think I used this gray sear. So what I did, what you do in this case is you buy the same color as the rattle can, and then you can touch up with this. And I did I airbrush that? No, I didn't. I did this one with I think I primed it in white. Boy, I had to have. So I primed it with the rattle can white, just without zenithal, and then used that gray to touch stuff up too. I really liked it. I thought it was a great paint. Now, white is a little bit fussier, and so maybe it won't be as smooth as it was with the gray. For whatever reason, adding a little bit of color, black or color to the white, smooths it up, makes it a little bit better, and I have no idea why, because it still feels like there's a lot of white. Because white is a, I think white is a large pigment. I can't remember. I read something where they were showing the relative size of the pigment, and I think white was larger and black was smaller. Anywho, but yeah, it's definitely a way to go. It's not. And then you could actually, so what I would do is I would probably rattle can it and then do a little bit of dry brush. What do you say? Or maybe get something in between airbrush and a dry brush. Never about doing a black undercoat on for anything I'm going to use speed paints on because they're so transparent. It is absolutely a risk. But Scott's results were really good with his rattle can. He literally sprayed them black and probably didn't spend the time I do, what I would do is I would spray them black and then go back in with the black primer paint and then just fill in as much as I could and then go do, like to just make sure you have it. Because I think, does this have some blue? Yeah, you can see some blue here. Because I just didn't get it very well primed. Now, I'm not too worried about it. But like if there's some spots that you miss, because spraying with a rattle can, there's certainly pieces you can miss. And then go back with the white after that, once it's fully dry. And rattle can paint dries pretty fast. I don't know. I don't know how fast Scott did his. He's not as particular about that as I am. Excuse me, I'm having soda burps here. But what I suggest you do, Stacy, is just buy a, do you use black or gray as a default prime color most of the time? So I mostly use black then white. I mean, this is it. So it's entirely black. Let's see if this one's any better. It's a little better. It's entirely black. Then I use gray at I'm sorry, you can't see that. It's entirely black. I then use the gray at a 45-degree angle, and then I use white from above. And the cheat that I do is I put a little bit more white on the face because I want the face to stick out more. I'm only okay at that part. Like, I'm doing a better job nowadays than I used to, but I also still occasionally, I'm not really certain. I feel the reason why I feel you have to wait a while is that if you're not long enough, the white gets more gray because I believe it's integrating, like softening the paint underneath. And so I generally will try to if I have the time, because many times I'm priming for this the morning of, I will do the black the day before and then the white the next day. But I wouldn't, so Stacy, I would get a mini. Again, it's not hard to strip them. I think maybe you said no thanks to that last week. It's not really that hard. That LA's Totally Awesome, which I got on my finger and then got in my mouth later on that day, even after I cleaned, so it was underneath my nail. This is like $1 something, and if you leave it in this overnight, it will strip the paint off, and then you just use a toothbrush to clean it off. So you can use one of the minis that you have, but I suggest maybe just getting a mini that doesn't mean anything to you. There's many of them. I wished I could send you some. I've got so many minis. But that you just experiment with. And there are people, so Vince Venturella, I think he uses the same miniature over and over again. I don't know if he's stripping it, but like you could get one of these and paint and try it out. This is the swallowtail, split swallowtail or whatever for the, it's the start player marker for Wingspan that the BGG store sells. This is a little expensive, for a single mini, but it isn't really. Minis are not cheap. As I was just saying earlier, the Games Workshop just is raising their prices. But experiment. I think you should try both. I think you should try both dry brushing and the rattle can. It is riskier, but here's the reality. If you're going to undercoat with white, then your biggest risk is getting too much white on the miniature when you go to prime it for zenithal highlighting. And so if it's mostly white, it doesn't matter. The black, as long as it's not too black otherwise. But I mean, I wish I had one here. Is this one? No. But I have done it because I have used the paint. I used a different kind of white recently, probably in the last 5 months. But I will try to do one. Oh, you have extras. You should absolutely do that, Stacy. Don't be afraid. That's the number one thing. Don't be afraid. You can basically fix anything. And that's the thing. You really, once you take that leap, you will be surprised, and it is a massive time saver, and it actually, I feel, brings the results up, right? So if you're painting on just a white undercoat, things look good. I mean, like I said, this was painted essentially on a white undercoat. It looks pretty darn good. But when you're doing larger volumes, like this is tiny, right? And I still would do this zenithal highlighting now. As I said before, I had done that in the day when I was using opaque paints. And what you do is then you use it to inform how you're going to do the color on each volume, right? So like if I'm going to use like a gray, so I'll use a darker, well, this is not extreme enough here. Let's do this one. I would use like a darker color and then blend in a lighter color towards the top. It doesn't have to match it exactly, but it just gives you an idea of like how that would work. And then you just keep following that. Now, that method's great, and I am a capable standard acrylic paint painter, but I really am enjoying these contrast paints. Number one is it has contrast paints and speed paints. Number one, it has made it so that I am much quicker, and then I also follow, like I was saying, I follow the photos that the Big Child, is it Big Child? Let me see. It is Big Child. I follow their stuff, and boy, I thought I was going to get this up here. I don't know what I'm doing. I have multiple windows open. But anyway, I follow theirs because I don't want to think about it too long. I think it's, you end up, you end up spending too much time sweating it. There we go. You spend up too much time sweating what you're going to do. And I actually watched a video from Ninjon yesterday. He has a new video out in the last few days that he uses a color cube. Color cube is really just a bunch of swatches. There's two sets that he had anyway in his video. And you just pick a swatch that you like the colors on, then you try to match these. He's just doing it so that they have things that work together in a color. And he was working outside of his normal space, comfort space, using colors he normally wouldn't necessarily use. And now he's picking them based on what looks good to him, so he has some bias on the colors that might be similar. But he was using other things that he didn't use. He actually used a different color, like almost a mustardy color for the skin tone. So that is a great idea. Like it moves you quickly. You want to be able to get to painting sooner. So it is one reason why I have no problem painting, just going for the way they have the design. And then I'm done, right? I think I did both of these in almost, it wasn't completely done, but it was almost 2 hours. I had 75% done, and a little over 2 hours. And for me, that's a feat, because I used to spend, now this is painted differently. I show this all the time, but this is how I can paint and sometimes paint. This is a lot of work. This took me a lot of time. The results are very nice, but this should be saved for like a headquarters unit, something that is like a command unit that you have, you want it to stick out on the field. Of course, then that means that, the opposing forces will be targeting that. But that's just kind of the thought about doing that stuff. And these were, these are painted kind of hybrid-y. This was contrast and this was standard. I think this was either rich gold or retributor armor from GW. So rich gold is from Pro Acryl. And so that was traditional somewhat. And then the capes and the tabards and stuff like that were the regular the zenithal. But I mean, I ended up using that as influencing my the shading I did on the armor. So you could do it. You just got to be, hey Amanda, how you doing? Amanda's going to come on our show in June, hopefully. Yeah, so I think that it's worth spending the time to go ahead and take a little bit of a leap of faith, or go outside your comfort zone, and then see how it works for you. And again, don't be afraid. You can always just go back, especially if you paint with, which you should, with thin coats, so that your brush strokes do not become obvious. So then you could potentially just paint over it. but my feeling is strip it and then just paint it. It's most of the time it works perfectly. I mean, I used to strip minis with brake fluid. That was a long time ago. That was like one of the solutions. I think I did it with plastic, and I think it survived, but it was easily the best for metal minis, but I will never use something like that again. This Totally Awesome is fantastic. My first mini painting was 2 weeks ago. Clear prime and then silver rattle can base coat all over, then speed paints over top. That works. It's a lack of depth. Now I know why. Yeah, it's okay though. I mean, there is nothing wrong with going that route, and you can blend paints with speed paints so that you can make them darker. You just have to use some like light understanding. So if you took the mini and just looked at it, put it out in the sun, and then saw where the shading was going, then you could go back in non-daylight lighting and shade that up a little bit with the contrast. Like, you know, take the color that you have and then add a color that will darken it without destroying the color. And in my case, what I normally do is I use the speed paint or the contrast paint thinned with medium, and then build it up myself with less and less of the medium, just more of the raw paint. I mean, that's what was going on here, right? On the hood and stuff like that. So this is pretty good. I mean, you know, I really like these. They look good. It's fabric, so I don't mind the little textile-y kind of shading going on there. Hey, David, how you doing? Oh my gosh, time roller. I was looking at the color cubes. Yeah, I'm interested in it. I don't know if I have enough paint. I mean, Ninjon has a ton of paints. Hey, it's a warning, which I should turn off. He has a lot of paint, so he could more likely match that color. And he was painting with standard acrylics. I absolutely don't have enough standard acrylics. I am trying to decide what to do. I will probably end up just going with Pro Acryl because although the deal with Army Painter, and their new paints are supposedly very good. The old standard acrylics were not great. But Army Painter is more likely to be around, and so haven't been out to the hobby store nearest us. Well, actually, not true. That we go to that one. There's another one that's a little bit ways that has a good games and miniatures collection, and they have, I believe, Army Painter and GW Citadel paints, but it might be Vallejo. But either one, I mean, Vallejo makes they're changing all their paints as well. So everybody's kind of upping their game so that their paints are, you know, more quality, better pigments, better concentration of pigment. There have been some paint lines that have been great for years, but you know, it's something that you can consider that you can do that won't be too. Wow. Okay. So this is. I'm now looking at what I got to do here. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get stuff done. Look for the best one for you that's quickest, and you know, quickest that is satisfying. And then, you know, if you just painted 2 weeks ago, Stacy, and you like it, you're already ahead of the game, and you're now painting. So as you paint more and you learn more techniques, you will get truly better. I mean, I didn't have YouTube when I first started to paint miniatures, but I kind of really jumped on the bandwagon. Gosh, let me think about it. I mean, I was watching Adam Smasher, who I now know, for a while, because he started in 2012. Maybe, and Miniac I think he's been around for like 7 or 8 years. I've been watching him for like 6 or... I think I watched a bunch of those guys. Midwinter Minis, Squidmar, and gosh, there was another one. They were all very small when I started watching them. There was like 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers, and now they're hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And they all have a different take on it, and you can learn a lot and, you know, grow as you learn more. I'm really kind of figuring out how to do this. I think I just want it to be the pale. I'm going to just do, I think, highlights on this and maybe some blue wash. So Gosh, it already looks like it though. It's pretty much, the zenithal highlighting does it. Now the barrel, I think I'll just do some of that first. So I'll do some kind of like non-metallic metal shading, and I'm okay at that. I sometimes am more successful than others, that's for sure. It's one of the things about painting minis that is challenging, like just getting so that you can, because my friend, so when I first started painting, well, when I first sort of modern started painting minis, which was over 20 years ago, my friends, while I was away when my grandfather passed, got back into Warhammer and 40,000, and it was new to me. I don't think I'd ever seen any of it, but I was impressed with the miniatures. But I was like, I really can't get into this, guys. And then, of course, I got into it. But my friend Alf is a great painter, and he was so good at wet blending, and it was just jealous. I was super jealous because I just wasn't as good at it. And trying, you know, I had a full-time job, so I wasn't like spending the time I would like to do on stuff like that. But in the end, it was pretty awesome. He did a really great job, and I learned some from him. I didn't learn enough. He's definitely a better painter than I am, still. But yeah, he moved away, so I miss, that's another thing. I miss just being with others because you get better. When I was in Germany, we went to a paint day with our friends Andy and Sebastian, and I was learning from others there, and there are he has some amazing painters in his community, and I'm just jealous. We need to try to get something like that going here, but the problem is, here in Southern California, it's not as common for people to paint and do this kind of stuff. They're definitely out there. It's just your best bet is near like a college. Although we went out to the Games Workshop in Thousand Oaks, which is, 25 minutes away. It is the nearest Games Workshop, unfortunately. Oh, that the undercoat looks good, Stacy. Thank you, Stacy. That's it's what you will get there. I honestly feel this is why. I mean, it's money. I'm pitching that airbrush and the this airbrush and the compressor here. That's like $65. Can be cheaper. I actually got it on sale. I just bought it because I wanted to try it to show people. Because I think, if you buy rattle cans, now it depends on how many minis you're painting. Like my paints, the only two colors I've rebought since I started buying the Citadel colors in 2019 is this one, because I spilled it. So this one here still has probably half the bottle, but as you notice, there's no pigment. So I just had to mix this in. I do not understand what happened when it spilled. Like, did all of the pigment in suspension, or I don't know how it worked, but I still use this paint, but I can't use it as a contrast paint because it doesn't have the other pigment. And then the other color I bought was this one, which I spilled as well, but I didn't spill as much. And I also just ran out of it. It didn't mess the paint up, but I ran out of the other bottle. But it's still near full, I think. Maybe a little bit down. It's one of the ones I use the most, but let's see where achromatic blue is. Yeah, you can't really see it, but you can see there. Let's see, where's the line? So it's about here. And this is one of my favorite colors, and I've used it on many minis. They last a long time. So I was saying, if you go with airbrush, spray can. Spray can doesn't last terribly long, and like you see here, this is a small can. This is a $20 can of paint, or at least $20. There's a lot of paint in here, and it would go a long way, but 3 cans of that will cost you this, and you can start airbrushing, and you'll save money in the long run, and you have more control of what you're doing, how you're applying the paint. Well, that's right, Stacy. You said you actually are used to using an airbrush. You should, if you don't have one, but you have the skill, maybe spend a little bit more. Go for one of the Harder and Steenbeck. So I showed these last week. Again, I'm going on to the minis, the airbrushes. This one, there's a standard version of this that was €95. So it's only, I think I got this ordered it maybe in October. Maybe didn't get it till the first of the year. Can't remember, because it was you know, they were, it was a pre-release thingy. And then this one here, which is, I think, well, let me look it up. So these guys are trying to compete. It's a very good airbrush. And then Badger, I don't have any Badger. I have so many Badger airbrushes. They are truly the airbrush that I learned to paint with, and I love them. But they're a little bit harder to get things, a little bit harder to get stuff for, unless you go to cons. The main guy at Badger goes to the cons, and he does really great deals, and I had many friends buy their airbrush. Harder and Steenbeck Evolution 2024. So this is the Harder and Steenbeck Evolution, which is a upper level from this one. This is the Ultra. 169. That's not cheap, but it's not bad. Let's see here if I can find. Wow, do they? No, they don't. Oh crud. What is it called? Premium Mobius. No, Mobius is another one. $86. Only one nozzle. Not bad. What is that? Oh, it's another Mobius. $75 for that one. So, 3mm. I would recommend 3mm over 2mm. Although they're really not that big of a deal. So I think this is the one that I have. Dual action. It is. This is the. So it's $90. Oh yeah, it says right there I purchased it. It's $90. Comes with 2 nozzles. It's not bad. They do sell the stuff. I actually had a problem with the nozzle out of the box. Like it was a tiny little kink, and I couldn't figure out what was going on with the paint. And then I looked with this loop at the needle. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a bend. And so I wrote them, and they were great. They sent me a new one, and it was in retail packaging. So they are going to sell stuff. I just don't know how easy it is to get. If you buy something from Harder and Steenbeck, Iwata, Badger, you can go to online source. Now, I actually had bent a needle on a Badger recently, and I had a little bit of trouble getting it, the replacement part. Now that I ordered it, I don't think they had it on. I mean, if I'd called, I was looking for fast service. If I called Badger, I probably would have gotten it quicker. So let me get this going here. I'm going to need white for sure, because I'm going to be touching up some of that to brighten it up. Gallery, G-A-A-H-L-E-R-I. That is the one I just. So yeah, these are all dual action. So dual action, Stacy's asking about that. Dual action is when you press down, that engages the paint. I mean the air, excuse me, that brings the air out. When you pull back, that increases the suction to pull the paint through the airbrush. So you want the air going first before you start the paint, so you don't get spatter. So you press down and pull, and this increases how much air and paint. Well, it's essentially all the air, but the amount of paint that comes through the airbrush. The one thing I was saying last week about, let me put that cap back on. The one thing I was saying about last week for the Ultra is it is training you to learn an airbrush. It will not pull back, so you can't engage the paint until you press down, then you're able to pull back. So it's a cool multi-level thing to try to help you develop your muscle memory essentially to do this. So this is the full spray level that you go back once you press down and pull. But they also have, if you're priming, this is how much you should be, their opinion, if you've got the paint mixed properly, that's how much you need to pull back for the amount of paint you need to prime. This is when you're base coating, so even a little bit less paint. And then I don't know what the 2, 3, and 1 are, but they're just varying levels. 3 is the most restrictive, and then the full. And you can also just pull the whole thing off. You don't have to have it on there. I definitely recommend a chromium plated one. This one is really pretty, but it's a little harder to clean. You know, because it's kind of it's a matte finish. I agree, Jason. Airbrush priming is great. Once you get over the hurdle of actually just doing it, it's worth it. But yeah, a good compressor is always a thing. As I said, this is actually a decent compressor. It is very tiny. It gets warm, So I had it in my pocket, and it was also kind of warm out, and it was getting a little hot. But I went for like an hour and 15 minutes priming minis, and I was walking around outside doing it, which was the most amazing thing, because I could be in light and get much, look, natural light is way better to see the miniature that you're painting. I just haven't been able to do that easily, and so I've been painting in here with the booth that's behind me. It's a little spray booth, which is great. My mom is the best. She keeps buying me these types of things. She bought me that booth. She's bought me compressors. Her and my dad bought my first airbrush many years ago, 40 years ago or something like that. And I still have that airbrush. It's a great airbrush. Prime versus bait versus undercoat. Yeah, I mean, so base is just the base color. Prime is the undercoat and prime are the same thing in my opinion. So if you, so this is called a zenithal undercoat. But it, literally, I mean, do I have Spider-Man Noir? This one I painted, and it is, I undercoated it, did the zenithal highlighting, and then just did highlights with a brush. And painted, like I painted the band around the hat with a single color. And he turned out cool, right? It was, I was very excited. I actually painted several minis that were all basically black and white with some color. And, this turned out really neat. And I didn't do anything very difficult on it. The first one that was kind of like that was Kingpin. Kingpin is mostly like a black and white suit. And so I left it as it was. Although the suit, I think I airbrushed a little bit more so that the suit was, the jacket, excuse me, was a little brighter since it's a white. Okay, paints. Prime first, then base, then undercoat. So no, it's prime first. Prime is just the black or whatever your undercoat color is. And you don't have to prime just in black. Then base is the color that you put on it. If you're gonna do zenithal highlighting, that is the undercoat. That, in my opinion, that is the undercoat. Then you start putting base colors over it. Now, if you're using speed paints, they're not really a base color. It's base color and highlights all in one. And then you might use a standard acrylic over that to do some highlights like I did on these. You probably can't see it, but see if I can get it up close. So I did a little bit of this highlighting here on the wraps here. It's just, so I did little dots of the blue, then I did a little bit of actually I used this gray to do the edge there that's running up that bit right there. And I can do more, but I was just like, oh, let's see what that looks like. And I will do more. Again, you don't have to. If you look at the other side, I didn't do anything like that yet, right? I did it on both of these. They kind of turned out slightly different because they're two different minis. But I worked on that on both of these, doing the same kind of thing. You can keep going. You can keep going and improving, spending a little bit more time. And I recommend that at some point that you do that you start to increase your ability to, improve your ability to paint. It's important. But you can be satisfied with just doing, stuff that looks good on the table. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, that is the bulk of my painting anymore nowadays. Let me see here, I got paint all over me. So the one thing I do love about, I know that they sell this, but I don't know if it's easy to get. This is some like rubber base that GW made. You need it for these paints. This is the one thing about GW's paints that is truly, this is why I've spilled paint several times. Because I'm always working in a tiny space and moving stuff around, and that's how I was actually painting on a stream during the pandemic, and that's when I spilled this. It was like on my mouse pad, huge mouse pad, but it was like plastic, so it was easy to clean up. But the GW ones, so where's the one, not GW, the speed paints, this is one I bought because so this is a 2.0, so it's slightly different. But I had painted these minis in Germany with my friends, and nobody had orange. And a lady there that was painting with us had the Speed Paint 1.0 version of this, and so I bought it because I really like this color. I think that it would be similar, so you can see it's essentially that color, and then I just did a little bit of yellow. I thought it was Averland Sunset, and it may be, but boy, it does not look the same as that paint, but maybe it is, I don't know. I thought I tried it. I don't know. I might have been just. It actually looks pretty close in the light there, but they actually have changed the formulation of these to be. That's why there's a 2.0 to be less. So what would happen is you would paint, and then if you painted over it, it would reactivate the paint, meaning it would become the color would start to transfer. So you would then be blending, and some people use that as a tool to do blending, which is pretty great. But the nice thing is these come with 2 mixing balls in the paint, and it's a dropper bottle, right? So you can just go into something like this and drop your paint in there, and you have this little palette. No, so the other day I painted and I popped out the paint here. There was a big black, cup of dried paint, and it just pops right out. So it's nice. I generally will clean it up though pretty good every so often because I don't want paint getting in there, other colors. But it's dry, so you could probably pop. I don't know. I don't like touching it once I've put it on too much because you end up messing things up. But yeah, these are pretty awesome. And the fact that so I think I have some Army Painter mixing balls, but they include them in all of their paints nowadays. So it's pretty awesome. Now, I won't leave this paint open the whole time. I'm just going to dip some in. So first I'm going to do is, I probably do a couple different shades just to have some right now doing it. So I'll put in a little bit of the darkest. Use the end of the brush. I'm doing this backwards though, because as I say, do the contrast medium first so that you don't mess it up. Again, you can get a little bit of paint in there, tiny, but without it really affecting things. But I just prefer not to have any. I don't want any tint that might affect stuff. So I just essentially put drops of this in. It's all music I've heard. I wonder what my playlist is. I thought it was 9 hours worth of music. Okay. Now, I can actually dip this brush in here. It is the medium that the paint is made of, so it's not a big deal. Still seems kind of dark there. Might need a little more contrast medium. Now, they look pretty dark, especially on camera here, but this one is definitely more gray. This one might be too dark. I'll find out and add a little bit more contrast medium. So I close that bottle up. Now we need some white. Did you dry brush the Avalon Sunset? I have not. That was actually, on that one I did, I just thinned it out and then used I thinned it out a little bit. So GW generally, their paints go on, are sort of thin when they're fresh. It's the one thing about these bottles, I don't feel they seal well. But I liked this. I literally bought the 2 colors that I used because I didn't have them and I wanted to try them out. But what I did is I used the small tip of my brush, so it was a brush like this, and I had it just relatively thin, and then I just painted those lines. And that's not as hard as it sounds. You definitely can get better. I did the freehanding of Wasp with the same size of brush of her eyes on the visor, and then some of these reflections and stuff. So it's not that hard. You just got to get better at it. Now, the biggest trick it's not something I necessarily do all the time, but one of the things you can do to make this easier is you paint the undercolor, then you put on the varnish. You put on a layer of varnish that is like satin, or excuse me, not satin, matte or ultra matte, and then if you do matte or satin, it'll clean off more easily. Meaning, I put the paint on. I'm like, so if you could. I mean, I'm going to point out my problems here. That it's haunting me. Is this eye slightly too far over from this one? Like it's not centered enough. But it's okay. It's not going to be noticeable. But it bugs me every time I look at it. But you then can just clean it up real quickly and then move it if you. I didn't even notice it when I painted it. I still could have cleaned it up if I was just speedy and noticed it. But yeah, it's the type of stuff that works. Don't worry, Stacy. I mean, I'm on here to actually talk about specifically this stuff. I think that it is fun to learn how to paint this kind of stuff, and I need to change glasses. And I want you to do it. That's the whole reason. I mean, you said you started because of watching me. I'm excited if that's true. And I want everybody to paint. I just think it's, I mean, for years now, I've actually wanted to paint. We've been now painting for like 4 or 5 years on stream. But I wanted to do this a long time ago, well before everybody went crazy with it, because it's terrible. I mean, I'm very happy. Those folks are doing it and they have the time to actually paint. But I want people to get encouraged to do it. There's no reason not to. It's really awesome. Let's see here. Brush is not kinda, I might have cleaned it, but didn't really clean it. No, I cleaned this one. But I use brush soap, brush cleaner, and preservative. This is an old bottle of it. Oops, there's no label on the side. It's on the bottom. I use this to clean my brushes. It works great. And then I leave it in the brush, some of it when I'm done, so that it can kind of recondition the point. And it does a pretty good job. It actually, these are Golden Taklon. And these are the only 2 I've used so far, and I bought a lot of them. But I think they do a pretty good job of holding the point, and I don't sweat them, right? So if you buy, I mean, I've used sable brushes. I have sable brushes. I don't feel comfortable using them on these types of painting because to do a lot of this, I'm jabbing it in there, and it really causes the needles to curl, even though they are better to snap back than the Golden Taklon. This cost me less than $1, 89 cents or something, and maybe $1. And the equivalent sable brush is like 20 some dollars. Now, sable brushes will last a long time if you care for them. And I have some. I have many of them. Although I stepped on one when Deborah was here. I think I fixed it, but I was really bummed. I was like, because it fell down, I knocked it down. Our studio is too crowded. There's no doubt about it. We have to, that's another thing I got to do this week. Okay. Oops, not the shot. So somebody recommended these Swedish sponges, and I have one. I actually should get it out here just so it's easier. Instead of using paper towels, and I have used them a few times already, and I really like them. They're not terribly expensive. They're basically made of paper and cellulose, or wood fibers, you know, and cellulose. But this is dry. But it's, you know, it's basically like a sponge, but it's a little bit more you know. First of all, super smaller cells, but it does a great job of cleaning the brushes off. So I use my squirter bottle and get it wet. Twisted Hana Night. I think a Kinderspiel, huh? Wow, Jason, thanks for telling me about it. We don't know what's going on. We have friends, a good friend on the children's jury, and he talks a bit about stuff sometimes, but he, you know, it's a big secret, and the nominations aren't going to be until June 11th. So, which is good for us. It means we only have like 5 weeks to get everything done, though. So I'm hoping. Christoph said, you know, the biggest challenge is to get the children's games And so when they were announcing them at the time of BGG-Con, we would take them home with us and then film them right away, because they announced those games sooner than the regular nominees. But they would announce both categories, or all three categories, excuse me, at the same time. Wow, this really needs to be out of the shot. And that needs to be in the shot. And that's a bummer. We actually, one of the great things was we would go to the BGG-Con and be able to play the games, play all the games. So we would, which is counter to how I actually really like to do this stuff. Because I want some people that don't know the game. Now, the good thing is not everybody goes to BG Spring, so we were able to do that. Next year they will be at BGG-Con, but we don't know what it's going to be like after that. But I'm hoping that they, there's many people that would like it. They feel it's a good event for them to see, because when we have that con, it's the week that they're announced. That Monday before the con, BG Spring, they will have announced the nominees. So we're gonna miss that. But the good thing is if Christoph gets us the games we can't get easily, that will be wonderful, because we like to cover the children's games. James is one of those people. He loves watching the kids' games nominees and seeing how they. I wish more people would, but I get it. It's not, you don't necessarily have any kids in your lives. We actually just love the kids' games as adults, so maybe Deborah can be involved this year, because she has a young son who's, how old is he going to be? 3 years old, I guess. Is that right? So we're into pinball. They announced a new pinball machine. Well, they debuted it today. No play streams, I don't think yet. Or no, Scott I think sent me a video, but it's for John Wick. Now I've never seen any of the John Wick movies. I'm sure they're good. I do like Keanu Reeves. But it looks really nice. New designer. And he's been on the software team, maybe, I think. But it's really very good looking art package. Wow, I was really knocked out. Won't be able to buy one. There's just no way. We don't have room for any pinball machines like that. But it would be neat. Yikes, that was a terrible, terrible brush stroke. Both those were kind of not great. So this is the type of paint situation here. Ooh, pops off. Where I probably, a standard acrylic would probably be better. But I'm just going to do this. I'm really not having any luck there. So you really want the brush to be as wet as you can without too much paint, and then you want to bring the point so that you have as sharp a point on it as you can. Yeah, it's looking okay. So now I'm going to let that dry. Now there needs to be some more. Goodness gracious, that's messy. Clean it up here. Of course, where was I doing that? Who knows? Was it there? Just put something over it. So I have finer, oh there it is. I have finer brushes, of course. I have some that I do some of these kind of details with. But you can't, they don't hold a lot of paint. And so that's a little frustrating. Well, actually it's terrible. You really don't, you want to get to where you can, keep painting without the brush getting too dry too quickly. I'm not really following any logic there, which is a mistake. You know, like the volumes. But I think it'll be okay once I put the an overshade that I'm going to do, the thin. I think I got some brown on there from putting it on his hair. I did. Now, one of the things you can do with this is you can actually touch this up because it's such a light color. But if I just work quickly, I'm having a hard time, like, part of what I do is I keep my hands together and I have better control. Yeah, it's my head. Favorite games? Magnifying glass with a light. I do have one. This is Stacy asking. I do have one that is a head. It's the one that Adam recommended. Let me see if I can see it here. It works pretty good, and it actually has different magnification lenses. But I don't see it here. It has to be recharged too, so I need to pull it out and recharge it. But I have just good light here. I use, I actually have pretty decent vision for this level. I'm nearsighted, so I don't really need it, but when I'm doing it like as close as it is to my face on some of these things, I need readers, and so I have readers going here for sure. I kind of started taking them from Nikki because she is farsighted. But she has taken them back because I bought more, and then she pulled some out for herself, and we've already lost a pair and just keep buying them. I only need them here. I don't need them to read or anything like that. I really do look forward to seeing Aaron this weekend. I hope that it all works out. It's been a long time. Actually, it's been a lot of that. You know, we had Deborah and Rusty, and that had been a while. Not as long as it has been for Aaron, but because he is just either work or family or just trying to have some time to himself, and it's hard. Okay, and then black in the... But we hope to film another game night with the Brothers Murph or two before they leave, because it's going to be a lot harder. I doubt they'll be down here much together at the same time once they move. And then we have our friend James from Druid City Games, hopefully coming next week. He is he's moving back to Alabama, where he is from. They came out here when his company got purchased, and they tried to stay, but it's just expensive. If you don't have a home at this point, and that's one thing they would like to have, is their own home. So it's a bummer. We really like James. Goodness gracious. I don't know if I have it. I'm afraid on these. I don't like it too tight because they tend to bend. The bases, these bases are not the same kind of plastic as like on a GW Mini. But I like these. I think they're fun. I have not painted any of the Stonemaier minis. I should do some. There needs to be a Tom Petty pinball. That would be awesome. The Foo Fighters one is pretty great for us. I love the Foo Fighters. I don't have a Foo Fighters machine either. Would be awesome, but it's just too much. So we do have one pinball machine. I bought the Munsters when it came out. Around then, so what happened was I was young, and I used to play pinball with my dad I think it was Monday nights we went out, me and my brother. And it was great, and I did it for a long time, and I continued a little bit. I was never a great player, but I continued a bit with my friends and stuff like that into the early to mid 90s, and then I think they kind of had a crash. I know they had a big crash at the end of the 90s. And so I kind of fell out of it because there wasn't really any places around. One of the places we used to go to, Castle Golf, it became a city park, which is awesome, and it's still Castle Golf. And they have arcade games, but they don't have, I don't know if they might have video games, but they definitely don't have pinball. Pinball requires a lot of effort to keep it going, right? It's just mechanical and things wear out. And that's probably why they got rid of it. I don't know. But anyway, then when we went to visit some friends in Brussels, they had 7 or 8 pinball machines, which I never thought about owning a pinball machine. And then had 7 or 8 pinball machines, and they had a new one of AC/DC. Now, I like AC/DC, it's cool, but the machine really blew me away. I'm like, wow, modern pinball is amazing. And so it was on my radar, and we started going to a pinball place when we were in Niagara Falls. There's a great pinball place in Buffalo called Pocketeer. That's a billiards place and pinball. I don't think they have any video games. Oh no, they do have some video games. But they have arcade, like skee ball kind of things and stuff like that. But we've been going there for quite a long time. And in 2019, we were there, and they had the Munsters, which I thought was a fun machine and not too hard for people to understand the rules. And so we got one. It was not cheap, but it was not as crazy as they've gotten now. And so I'm really kind of glad we bought one we did. But yeah, they're awesome. And there's lots of good ones. So Scott has a machine, a couple machines, and he got the new Elton John machine, which is really nice. Hey, Chad, how you doing? Chad is that runs our, and he's looking for work. Chad runs our Discord server. And he got laid off from his company that he was at for a long time, or quite a while. So I don't know exactly what he's looking for, but you could probably find him on LinkedIn if you have something. See what he's looking for if you have any jobs open. Okay, so that's pretty good. So I'm going to do a thin wash of the. I feel like I might be overdoing it, but I kind of like it. I don't know. I want it to be that blue. I actually like that color. So I'm going to do a little bit of black, tiny bit of this blue, or a little bit of the gray. I could almost just do it with this. It's almost light enough. Okay, again, I should be getting the contrast medium out first. Not quite blue enough. But yeah, pinball is fun. It's the crazy thing is now Stern. I don't know what it was like in the old days, how many machines they'd put out, but Stern puts out 3 a year, I think now. And they did Jaws, which we played a bunch and really liked it. It's the same guy that designed. Godzilla, which is truly one of our favorite machines. And Jaws is cool. I mean, I've always loved the movie. Well, I didn't get to see it when I was a kid. My dad was not going to let us see it. But when I got older, saw it and I loved it. It's a great machine, really fun. Let's see how pale blue this is. It might be too much. Let's find out. Oops, head in the way. Doesn't help you guys. Because, yeah, we went to Texas Pinball Fest in March in Dallas, and it was great. Lots of new machines. The Labyrinth one is a pretty neat machine. It's a brand new company. So that would be it'd be awesome. I never saw Labyrinth until a few years back, but Nikki and Scott knew that one. Actually, I think on the cruise the year before last we watched it. And I love David Bowie and stuff too, but I just never saw. And I saw the Dark Crystal, but for whatever reason I didn't see that one. It has a Ute. Okay. So that's kind of wraps up Punisher. I think that'll look good. When it dries, we'll see how that goes, and I might do some bright spots on it. No, notice no metallics, right? It is a big metallic gun. $2 board game was disappointing. I don't know if I tried that. I don't think I saw that one. Yeah, 0.35 would be good. No. Needle size is 0.1. 0.1 is very small. 0.2 is a little smaller. 0.45 is heavier gauge needle. So you can do, so like they were saying with a 4 on some of these harder steam decks, a 4 you still could do good detail. You could do more heavy paints. I think the finer needle means that you can't push the pigment through, right? And so you want, I think I have a 0.18, a 0.2, and a 0.4 in my Infinity, Harder and Steam Deck Infinity. I did not put any paint out. I opened it up and did the thing, but never put any out. I will use some. So yeah, the smaller the needle is, the finer the detail. But you can do great work with a 3 or a 4 and have a much more variety. Again, it's not, unless you're painting hair, so there's a great guy on YouTube, Art Workshop, I think it is. He is reviewing, he's gotten a lot of people watching him because he reviews airbrushes, and so he's got a lot of miniature painters. So he's talking about a little bit, he's not a miniature painter. He actually is a portrait and airbrush artist, and he does hair. And so one of the things he will always do, you should go look at any airbrushes you're thinking about. He's most likely reviewed it. I believe it is the Art Workshop. He's great. He shows the same kind of tests. He shows how much air going through the brush and things like that. Oof, I got it on Blade's hair, man. What a boob I am. What was I doing? Real carefree with that brush control. This music's funny. But I definitely would recommend looking at stuff before you buy. I don't think I would buy a so some of the, like I said, this one here, because it's got an air compressor with it, it's okay. But I would buy one that guarantees you can buy parts for it, because it is the one thing that I definitely have issue with, that I will drop them very, hasn't been that many times over the years when I really think about it, but it still is nothing but heartbreaking, because it's kind of a pain to get it all taken care of. But ugh. So putting that on beforehand if I let it dry, it should be fine. But we are going to paint. What time is it? I feel like I haven't gotten that much done. Oh, I got another half hour or a little more. Let's put that away or aside. I do need it. I still haven't cleaned it. I just need to soak it. I think it's okay. I worked on it a little bit, but I didn't actually get in there and clean on the inside. I will probably pull the needle off. I have a wrench to pull that type of needle off. It's actually similar to, this needle is actually similar to the older Badger ones I have. So it isn't really that far off. The problem is the gaskets are these rubber ones, and I think you used to use wax beeswax on the old style Badger ones. But I definitely need to clean it because it was not even spraying water out of it easily. So I have to work on it. But yeah, that's where you can actually pretty much, I mean, I am way particular. I'm surprised I messed that up because I did follow, like, I think the techniques because the cup was clean and I did what they suggested, but I don't think I got enough paint out of the internal body of it. Those are the kinds of things you worry about. There are some airbrushes that are external mix, meaning the air, I mean, these are essentially external mix as well because the paint's coming through and then the air and it's all happening outside of the brush. But really the integration is inside. On a real external mix, there's two nozzles. One of them is air and one of them is paint. And that is a single action. So you just can control how much air and then I think you crank back to get more paint. I've never had a single action airbrush. But you really want an internal one. You want one that's a little easier to take apart. So I have a Badger. Might as well show you while we're taking a break here. While that dries. I have oh gosh, where is that one? I'll show you my oldest and one of my newest. Is this my oldest airbrush? No. So yeah, this is I have another one similar to it. I have many airbrushes, too many. I have stopped buying airbrushes. Goodness gracious, I pulled all the drawers out. So I really like Badger brushes. They will do repairs. You can send them in and get them fixed. I've never had to do that. So this originally came with a plastic end piece here. I purchased an aluminum one later because it felt like it was out of balance. Although this aluminum's pretty light. This has a newer trigger. This is a high roller trigger that works great. So this is my earliest airbrush, but I have replaced this nozzle at least a couple times because I've dropped it or actually I think I did drop it at least once, but I also bought different sizes. So if you see, it's got a very similar nozzle to the other one. This is not a common design on modern airbrushes anymore, although there are some. I actually feel the one from Harbor Freight that I used to have is very much a clone of this original one. But yeah, you can see here, this is very similar. It's really tiny. There's an Anthem brush. I have maybe one like that one. Let me see here. That has a larger needle. No, nozzle. The needle's also, it depends on the size of you can get different sizes, but yeah, this is my first airbrush my parents got me, and it still works great. So you'll notice here though, it is a suction feed instead of the paint reservoir being on the top or the side. This is on the bottom, so you put a bottle. And is one reason why I don't use it as much. If I were painting more, wow, that needle really sticks out there. I don't really remember that. That seems pretty far. If I were doing large amounts of stuff, I would probably use the bottle because it's a lot of paint. Let me just put this aside here. This is the Sotar. This is a great airbrush, but I was recommending it to a friend who's not a painter, and the guy at Badger's like, no, don't get that airbrush. And he's right. It's too fine. So look, it looks similar, but the needle, the nozzle is it just sits on there. It's friction. It's not even friction fit. It just pressed down by the pressed down by the cap. Now that doesn't look very clean. Ow, there you go. That's the other reason you stab yourself. So these are great, but it's very delicate, right? I would not recommend it as a starting airbrush now that I really think about it, but I love this airbrush. It does a great job. And it has an integrated cup, so you can see how open it is in there. So you can't pull it apart. It has this little bit on here to make it easier to hold. This is a stop so that you can control how far back it goes, kind of like the Harder and Steenbeck one. But they're all great. I just feel you should buy one that you can easily buy parts for, because that is where you're going to make the website. Airbrush comes with our new 4.45 millimeter head set, which supersedes the detail calculator of previous four. So what that's saying is that they have increased the quality of their airbrush so that it can do detail, and it's actually 100% true. It is like they are now getting much better at doing that. But the small, I mean, I can actually show you the needles from the different ones, and you can see if they are chunkier as they go higher. So it means more paint. As you pull back, more paint can go through the needle because through the nozzle, because the nozzle is wider. It has a wider needle in it. So yeah, it's confusing, believe me, but it is, the smallest brushes are the 0.1, and then 0.4 is much, hey, Angelo. But it is confusing. Stacy, definitely go check out the art workshop. Let me double check that that's what it is. I think I'm subscribed to that guy. He is really good because he goes into like the real detail, and then you can watch him paint hair strands on some beautiful portrait. He's just so good. And what's great is he covers most everything, and he buys most of them himself. There's another guy that's pretty great too, and I might be, that's why I'm checking, because I might confuse them. The other guy's not as consistent. Hey, wow, happy 60th birthday to Badger. Yeah, it is the art workshop. He's great. So yeah, he's covering the Renegade Chrome, excuse me. 60 years, I have to watch that video. Not all of his stuff is, like he has one here that he's doing, a portrait. He's drawing stuff and stuff like that, but let me go to his actual channel. So yeah, he's doing other art. Airbrush Fire, Grex Genesis. I mean, he covers everything. Look at this. He's doing face, So this is one using an airbrush. He's looking at it 2.5 years later. This is spoiler alert. This is one of his favorite airbrushes. He's pretty great. Oh, I need to see this one. So his top 5 favorite airbrushes. I own that airbrush clamp. It's fantastic. I own these. I mean, I bought these pliers because of him. They're nylon jaw pliers. He's great, and he definitely covers a lot of airbrushes. It'll give you a good idea of what. Wow, see that side's too dark. It's okay though. I'm not going to worry about it. This one's a little better. That looks pretty good. I should spend more time on the non-metallic metal, but I don't want to spend too much time. Again, the focus should be his face. I really like the faces of these guys. Anyway, there you go. We put those aside so they really can dry. That's still kind of tacky. So let's look at Blade. I need to go get a picture of him. Let's see if this makes me log in again. It's usually how it works here. Blade. But I've saved them all. I really like having the reference. I don't really know the comics stuff that well, so it's a bit of a challenge for me. I mean, I could make my own decisions. I made some decisions contrary to the pictures because I do enjoy the movies. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go for that. Okay, yeah, so that's got some cool stuff going on the sword. I'm considering his name is Blade, and his glasses. The art workshop. the ART workshop. Let me show you his. See, there you go. He's great, and he really, really covers them very well. And just to see how, I mean, you have some art experience with an airbrush, so you probably understand some of that. I did. That was what I painted. I did not paint minis with an airbrush initially for the first 20 years of my airbrush experience. But as soon as I started painting minis, I primed with airbrush. I never really used can because I knew how great airbrush can be. It's very smooth. And it is the thing I actually prefer to rattle can. I suppose if you are in the right ideal, not ideal, but there's a good window of how good rattle can works, then you can do just fine and have just smooth quality stuff. The other thing, the reason why I don't like acrylic, rattle cans is the solvents. I really am not a fan of any of those solvents, the smell. I absolutely have to paint outside. You know, you cannot do it inside. So yeah, his coat is very similar, but it's grayer. So maybe we'll go with a slightly, so he does not look like Punisher. But I'm going to do the face first, because I almost always do. I'm looking at the picture. Wasn't Nylon Jaw a Bond villain? Maybe. Nylon Jaw, I can show you the Nylon Jaw pliers. They're great because you can take this stuff apart and not destroy anything. And they actually give you an extra set of Nylon Jaws, which I do not know where those are at. But these are them. I actually bought these because of his recommendation. Japanese, of course, they make fantastic tools for hobbies. You know, Gundam is like the huge thing for model stuff, and it actually probably causes a lot of innovation for miniature stuff. I would love to paint one of those someday. But yeah, let's go with the face. So I'm going to do my standard. Wow, what is that? Is it already out? Gilman Flesh. It is. Shake it up. But he's really good. He gives you an idea. So there's videos on there, I believe, that tell you about the different airbrushes in general, so you learn about nozzle size. But it is confusing because many new airbrushes that are 0.3 and 4 millimeter nozzles are good at fine detail, and that's the thing that you'll be impressed. Where he is a very fair reviewer, I think he's bought everything. He has a fantastic compressor that I would love to have, but it's, you know, like $800, $900. But it's very quiet. I have, this one is not that quiet. It's quiet, but the compressor is pretty good over here, but it's got a large enough tank that I don't have to worry about it. It will be quiet most of the time, and it's not terribly loud when it goes on, but I mean, there's a stream where you can hear it where it has been on all weekend, so every time it just leaks out, you know, slightly over time. And so once again, I'm putting the paint first, and I really should be putting the contrast medium. I definitely want a little bit. So this is probably the paint I've used the most, it looks like, or close. Well, no, beyond those two. It's a lot. I use the Gilman Flesh for just everything. It is a great color, and it's great color beyond that than just skin tone. But it is awesome. Okay. We're definitely in songs I don't know. Let's see here. But yeah, you can clean these sponges in the dishwasher. These Swedish sponges. They're pretty great. And I love it because it stays wet. I'm putting the paint in. I just actually put some water on there and it diluted it. But I use it to clean the brushes and to pull off just some of the paint when I'm painting. Okay, back to the base. I think I'm going to use the skinny base. The other one, I don't know. We'll see how it is. The jaws, let's see if there's this. Feels a little loose. I don't think there's anything I can do to tighten it. Now I have more of these, so, but I only have one of these. Paint on here. Was that for me painting? Obviously. What a mess. That's probably why I got it all over the place. You definitely don't want your paint to dry. You can see here that it's starting to dry in the ferrule. Over time, no matter what I do, I can't get it out. Now, it's still not messing it up. What it does is the paint gets in there and it expands it and spreads your bristles apart. Let me just clean this for a moment. This is literally the very end. I crunched all the sides off and made a little clump of it. I've used this for at least 20 years. I mean, it's so old it does not have a barcode on it, so I'm not certain. I'm not certain. And then this new one I have over here somewhere is newer, has a barcode, but the new ones are smaller. Like you don't need, I don't even know. I feel like it's very empty underneath here. So let me feel this. Yeah, you don't need like this whole bottom. For whatever reason, they make it thick and there's nothing in it. So they made it less plastic. Oops, that's the one I'm using. But yeah, I've used it forever. I bought another one thinking I was getting through this one fast. I have not gotten through it that fast. What does that say? Acrylico? Oh, there you go. Okay. Paint. It means paint. So I just draw it on my hand and you can see little chunks of paint coming off. So I probably, because of whatever's going on, you see there's paint up on this ferrule. I probably let that one sit a little too long. Now, it's okay. You can, as long as you don't have to clean them like this every time, but I generally at the end of every session will do this. Is the other thing, it's like talking about airbrush size. And there's good deals on Amazon on airbrushes all the time. Particularly, I mean, I've found great deals on Badger. And as I said, on the gallery ones, which I think are nice. I think he reviews, the Art Channel reviews several versions of the gallery airbrushes as well. And then there's another guy, Barbados Rex. He is a Gundam guy, but he covers paints and airbrushes and spray booths. He's pretty great too. His wife was having health issues. I'd never seen him and recently he started to actually show his face. But he's really cool, like tells you some cool tricks about spray booths and how to deal with not having a vent to the outside. But running it through filters is definitely better than, it pulls it through and then through the filters, so I don't have to wear a mask. I mean, I generally, if I'm painting outside and I'm not standing around, I might wear a mask, but if I'm spraying inside where I feel comfortable with it, which I don't generally, I absolutely have a mask on, because paint, you don't want to. So what happened was I got an airbrush. I believe it was the, it probably was the beginning of me going crazy with more airbrushes. But I believe it was the Harbor Freight one, and I wanted to see, because it really looked like the Badger airbrush. I wanted to see how it compared, and I wanted to, actually I think it was when I bought the varnish. It was one of these new varnishes actually, AK Interactive. So yeah, it wasn't when it was when I already had airbrushes. And I wanted to spray these. A lot of people prefer to spray their minis. I generally mostly paint by hand, do the varnishing, but I have done it, and where I live, it's not a problem to actually do whenever to do it. But I only was going to do it intentionally for 30 seconds, and it was so bad. I was already like starting to choke, and like you do not want to breathe that stuff. Okay, well, let's see how he looks here. This is the right tone. I have my hair. I got my hair cut, but it is still everywhere. Yeah, it's too light, but it's okay. Can build it up. What is the deal with his hair? Maybe I didn't get it off my fingers. So almost feel like I might want to beef it up for the next one because I tend to over apply it when it's too thin. And I did want it to be a little bit lighter, but not so light, especially if you think of Wesley Snipes. He's got a dark tone to his skin. Although I think it's Mahershala Ali going to be playing, if they ever get to them. I don't know what's going on. They only have one Marvel movie coming out this year. I'm gonna resist the temptation to go back and put another coat on. Let it dry and put another one on. It already looks pretty good though. I do want it to be a little darker though. So I try to paint in, put it on, let it dry, then do your next bit. I do love doing one coat, I'll tell you that, if you can get it right, but I generally don't. For skin especially, I don't get it right. Don't worry about that. His mustache will have color. But yeah, so I work in zones, and then I'll come in and do like this part here, so I won't be touching it. Then I'll come back and then do the underside of his jaw and stuff like that, which is way easier to keep it in a separate part of the project there. Hey, what do we got here? Am I gonna see this? Thanks for the follow, I think there. I can't really see it, I don't know why. We're hearing it, but I'm not seeing it. Maybe it'll pop up in a minute. Anyway, thanks so much. Working on Blade right now. But you can see it's already drying on his forehead. Like, it's very quick. Well, with me anyway, with our atmosphere here, it's pretty dry right now. That's probably where I want it to go, sort of. It's a little splotchy, so probably jumped the gun there on painting that other one, but I don't know. Let me just do a tiny bit more brown of the skin tone. Oof. But yeah, this paint is so flexible. So that was the one I touched up. I had put some black. Now, it's not a big deal, the little bit of black on there, because it will, for the most part, as long as it's close when you do the touch-up of the gray or the white, it is lost in the shading for the most part. Again, this is a large surface that's smooth. It's not as organically, you know, like tree bark or something like that, or scales. So it's not as easy to conceal this stuff, but in the case of that, what I had to put it on, that was on his hair, and it's got some texture to it. I think I just got that on myself. Probably should put that back a little bit. I should have taken it off the stand. So yeah, put it on and then just resist the urge to touch it. And really, that's all paint. And as it's starting to dry, you don't want to touch it while it's developed. You know, like a skin of it drying. You don't want to tear that. You're going to end up making it look. The brush strokes become more apparent and things like that. Not as smooth. So that's why you need it. So one of the ways one of my problems with wet blending is it dries so fast for me. But I found that using an additive called retarder, Golden makes a retarder, does a pretty good job. Now, when you do that, I've never used it on contrast paints, but when you do that, you are then going to have to wait longer for it to dry. So, but you're going for a technique that you can't easily do if you don't have it. I'm not going to touch that. I'm so tempted. I see a problem, but I'm just going to wait till it's done. You kind of want to wick off some of the paint. I do not want to mess up the blade. I'm very happy with the brightness on that. I touched it. Probably with my thumb. Well, I will let it dry and see how that goes. How's that one looking? Pretty dark on that top compared to that was the second coat. But that's what I'm going for, a little bit darker. And I'll tell you now, that is where my problem is with regular paints. I am not good with skin tones. It's part of the whole pale colors that I just have the heck of a time with. I do want to get better at it. That's why I've decided to go ahead and work on that Black Widow. So his hair is pretty dark. It looks like there's some skin there behind his... So I will probably use... It looks pretty black, but I will probably use the Wildwood, which I've used on Shuri's hair. I might put a little bit of... I don't know. Have to decide. I really loved it on Shuri's hair, so... He doesn't have the texture that... hers did, which was amazing. Well, that looks pretty good already. Better. I'll do a little bit here on the top. Trying to smooth it out. It is one of the things about the speed paints that you can have problems with. But I think you can get some good results. And I've done some minor touch-ups after the fact where I go in and blend it a little bit. I've done it on the capes. I've done it on some face stuff. Faces are where it gets messy, so I'm not gonna go too crazy here. That's cool. I'm gonna let it dry a little bit longer, but you can see it's pretty dry. And that's one coat of it slightly darker. Now there's where I had got some color on it, but it won't be that noticeable once it's all done. There we go, crazy. Let that dry. But you see how dark it is, how fast it dries. I'm pretty sure it was pretty, well, Dallas was probably somewhat similar to our, although it was in August when I painted. I've painted 2 times, 2 years ago I painted around this time. I painted Nebula, which I've never painted my own Nebula. It was really awesome. I want to paint that one. And then I painted the stuff beforehand. And when I did it beforehand, it was in August, so it was way more humid. You know, it's not Florida humid, but it's humid. It was funny because Scott's like, it's not humid here. Like, oh yeah, that's right, you're from Florida. To us, it's humid. Nikki and I. Okay, so let's get some wildwood. Let me see where we're at on this color. They're pretty good together there. Oops, you can't see. So wildwood is another one of my favorite colors. It's amazing. I mean, that's the downer about. I was looking at the stuff from speed paints, from the Army Painter speed paints, and I don't know that they have enough browns. We watched the Bond Spy Who Loved Me that has Jaws in it, which is just the silliest character. Plus, that, you know, he falls in love in the next movie, which I don't recall being very good either, but. Goodness gracious, my hair, what is going on? Probably losing hair. Okay, so that looks very dark. That's the color right there. And it is a dark color. But I will put a little bit of, well, I think I need a little more paint than that because I kind of burned through the brown on the skin. Now, it's not as much hair as there is skin, but, and I won't be doing as many coats probably, because I'm just going to thin this a little bit. But I like it because it's almost, you know, it's a very dark, not black, but kind of close. Okay. Not dark enough. So that's going to take a couple coats as well. I really did not put a lot of contrast medium in there. It's probably not as dark as I think it is. I do feel like I did Shuri with it just straight from the bottle. So I'm most likely going to do another coat because it's not quite as dark as I'd hoped. Again, though, I do like to build it up. I feel inching up to the shade that I want is better than going too much and not having it light enough. Okay, no more touching. I'm not really happy with the goatee. I don't know if it's just the shape of it. I did not do a very good job of cleaning the mold line on the top of his head here. This is not good. I try really hard to catch it and I just don't see everything. It's weird. I do much better when I'm assembling the Mini. Hey, Circe. Seems like it's not. Let that dry and touch it up. Okay, now you can see here, it's a little light. I do like that you have his hair texture there though, so I don't want to go too crazy on it. Oh goodness, I'm kind of hungry. A little bit on his skin. I don't think I actually did a very good job of getting it on the front end of this little bit of his hair either, so have to wait for that to dry. Lincoln, do you find your approach to painting to be the same whether you are doing people, creatures? Generally similar, yes. I mean, I did do this mech here. And I followed this similar kind of technique. Again, this was the first one that I tried to do where I airbrushed silver, so you can see it a little bit got on penny. But I think it looks pretty good. I mean, this is a cool looking. It's not 100% done, but and she's definitely not done. I need to, you know, her skin's a little too dark, but I'm gonna probably just go with it. But yeah, I think that it's the results are pretty great. As I was telling you last time, I was looking at a post on BGG, and it was kind of like what I'm talking about, but a even simpler method that I thought was great, and it was mechs. Now, it was a very basic. I don't know that I would do that with figures, but maybe, I mean, if they're large enough figures, I feel like a lot of that would be lost. Oh, I don't want to forget his skin. Oh my goodness, hands. How silly. Well, let's do that while the paint is still fresh. Bonehead here. Now, the reality is I can paint it later if I forgot it, but I have the paint. I really like the details. This has like some grate on this curb, you know, there's a curb with some grating, like a drain. Some of that stuff is really fun. It's not, so in Games Workshop, they tend to, they have like a box, you know, a palette of objects that you can use. And they don't overdo it, but they do, there are some things that repeat. And these guys have a little bit of it. I feel like we've had this grating before, but I love it. And I really love it on the GW stuff. I think those, I might have showed you on the Stormcast Eternals I painted. They, shoot, got it on his cuff. Yeah, he's got black cuffs, so it won't matter too much, but I'll clean it up here. That looks pretty cool. He's got dark, oh, I forgot his eyebrows. Goodness, I'm forgetting stuff all over the place. Let me get a little bit more on the skin here. Again, I'm touching it and I should not be. So I think this hair, the other hair is going to be a little better. This one here is going to be a little better, at least from this perspective. Now I haven't painted it again. I can see that there's a little bit of gray on his goatee that I will need to, that I'll need to fix. You know, I'm being picky. It doesn't really, you don't have to worry that much about this stuff. Only if it's really a large gap or obvious. I did airbrush the Xanathal silver on that one, yes. It's not as great. You can see there's some, like I was focusing on the front here, and so it's a little darker towards the back, but I did airbrush the silver. That's why I got it on penny a little bit. I was trying very hard to be, because you've got this spine thing here that's silver. And I did a pretty good job, and then I kind of touched up afterwards the black, and then did just the light for her skin. But then I was worried, I mean for her body to do the zenithal. But I didn't put as much effort into the face as I probably should have. I mean, I think she's supposed to be Japanese, so. Okay, so I got to almost that done. But I feel you can get pretty great results with this method on just about anything. I've not done a ton of buildings. I did a few. I had one somewhere that we did that was a starter token for something, BGG, that we had sold. I don't know where that's at. I'll have to track it down. Kind of painted it on a stream in 2001 era there. Some of it anyway. I had done a bunch of it on my own. Oh, some skin thumb going around the side here. Yep, a little bit of skin, like a little bit of hair there. What was the other thing I was thinking about on the hair? Oh, that might have been where I cleaned it up. I think it was. So I want to do a little bit more hair, the dark on his hair. I don't want to lose the texture though. It's kind of a bummer. But I'm pretty satisfied with the darkness of the color on his hair here, so I won't go too crazy. Oh, eyebrows. Cool. That looks neat. It's different. One is a little darker, maybe a little bit more. Well, it's the shading, right? The zenithal undercoating was different. But it should be fine. It's still not quite dry. Well, I just painted some of this, but this just doesn't look quite right. He has dark pants on, so it's very similar to Punisher. A little bit too much, but that's okay. So let me kind of wrap stuff up here. Let me clean my brush one more time. I'll get back to this. Let's see, next weekend is the 11th. We film Game Night this Thursday. I think I'll have one more stream before we go to BGCon. That'll be on Thursday, the 16th, maybe? 17, 18, 19, 20. I don't think that's right. Maybe the 15th. Or maybe the 17th. Let me look. There is a stream starting on for that weekend for the yeah, it's the 16th. We leave on the 20th, and then we come back on the 28th. It's a longer con this year too. BGG Spring is one day longer, which is cool. We don't have enough time, on some of those cons as far as, well, it's all relative. We like the con, and so we enjoy having it last a bit longer. We just got, a couple weeks back, we got back from the gathering, which is 9 days. We only did 7, kind of 7, because we got in late on Saturday and left early on the following Saturday. So I guess it was 7 days. Wow, that really comes out of the sponge too. I'm just wetting the sponge with this bottle, and it's taking out what I had a lot of brown on here. That's pretty cool. So let me clean the brush. One more exciting example of that. Best Forks Fantasy board game? Star Reapers. Well, I don't know. I really love, well, I've never played a real game of Imperial, wait, am I remembering it wrong? I don't even have it. Goodness gracious, Fantasy Flight. Never played that one. It's not Imperial, is it? It's now something. Goodness gracious. But we've played a little bit. But the one that we had a real fun time with was, which is not fantasy, it's sci-fi, was the Ascending Empires, which is a dexterity game / 4X game that's very quick. We did it on a stream with Dave, a live stream a couple months back. And of course, after we streamed it, we sent that copy back, and I backed the Kickstarter. I think it was a Kickstarter. It was either I think it was a Kickstarter. Actually, I've never backed anything on GameFound, so I will be soon. I might not have made it today. There's one I was thinking about doing today. Oh darn it! Let me look. Was like 3 or 4 hours before the end when I looked at it this earlier. Oh goodness. I don't even remember the name. Let me go to Kickstarter. I'm seeing old ones here. I might have missed it. Well, wait, I can go to the... Let's see if they have it active. I might have blown it. I should have done it this morning. Oh, I think I missed it. I'm seeing all of their stuff, but it's not showing the most recent one. Well, it's probably in here somewhere. We're going back in time. Why am I not seeing the new one? This is an old one. Oh no, darn it. Let me look it up in the email. Wow, I'm seeing like I don't see it. Ay. Anybody mention it? I seen they had Heroes of Might and Magic 3 board game, but played way different than the computer game. Seemed interesting. I mean, you know, that's the reality about like interpretation. So they did Slay the Spire recently, and Scott has been loving that game. You know, we don't have it. Scott was wondering if we did. Wow, I'm not seeing it in here. CalamityWare. I don't know where that is. Oh well, shucks. I don't like missing. Oh, you know what's a game found? That is why I was saying I was going to back it on GameFound. Darn it, I can find it. I'll look for it on GameFound. I'm not backed anything on there. That's right. Let me just go to GameFound. But I do want to back. I will be backing the new, even though I really shouldn't, the new Marvel. It's actually not Marvel. It's DC United that's coming, and gosh, I could have swore it was under Projects We Love, but I guess not. So let me look here. But it's a design by Snowcrest. Did it end? I think it funded. Oh, darn. I missed it. So Snowcrest, it's designed by Philip DuBarry, who did goodness gracious, what's that game called? Oh, I don't know. It was the World War. It's basically kind of like you're trying to kill Hitler. Black Orchestra. And no problem, Stacy. I'm glad I was able to help you out. Have fun. But yeah, I should have backed it. Darn it. I don't even know if I have an account, so I'd have been making an account. This morning, I woke up and then saw that email, I think, and then thought I'd get to it after the stream, but I did not. They might have late pledge. It's Grail Games, which we love. David, he's a great guy, and you know, he's just getting back in. He had life and stuff he's a teacher and got in the way, and so he was backed away from doing board game stuff for a while. His brother is Phil Walker Harding, who designed many fantastic games, and I think he's done one game. I don't know. They haven't done a ton of games together on. Although they might have done Boomerang. I can't remember if Boomerang is Phil's design or not. But I'm happy that they're back to doing. That he's back to doing games, because he's really great stuff. He won't be doing. He won't be doing any more Knizia, unfortunately, and that was some of my favorite stuff. Nope, it's Scott Alms did Boomerang, of course, which is awesome too. Anyway, so I'll be back again a week from this coming Thursday, and then we have game night at 5:30 on Pacific Daylight Time this coming Thursday, and then again on Tuesday. And hope to see you guys then. Let's see if we can raid somebody on Twitch. I can't do. There's things I like to do how to do things on windows that I miss on. No problem, Star Reapers. Thanks for joining. Let's see here. Move that over. There we go. Let us see. Did I hit raid or what? That was weird. Okay. It's funny, I see things in here. Scott has other stuff he checks out on streams, and they're showing up here. It's weird how that all cross-pollinates, even though they really shouldn't. I don't like the way... Is there a way to sort this that I can... Wait, following. Chess. Oh, Rado. Duh. We're going to go visit Rado. Actually, it looks like it's just Ruel. But if you want to join in, top 12 deck building games, go ahead and do that. Say hello to me for everybody. And I hope to see you guys again next week. Take care. Let's see if this will go. And if you want to join the raid, just go ahead and click through. And we're raiding. Bye, everybody. And okay, YouTube folks. No Rado. Okay, so YouTube folks, thanks so much for joining me. And I'm sorry you can't raid. I wish that was one thing that they would do on YouTube. It'd be awesome. Maybe they'll do something like that.